One of the aims of discursive psychological research is to look closely at the kind of talk people produce in groups.
I first started using discourse analysis to look at the ways in which we sort of discursively produce our identities through talk. I was interested in looking at the ways in which young people talk about themselves, talk about their relationships. And I think what was particularly interesting were in the group discussions where you had, young women and young men, and the ways in which the process of trying to negotiate their identities, it wasn't a straightforward process of this is who I am. It was a process of discussion, of negotiation, of drawing on different kinds of ideas or discourses in order to frame their identities.
I think, because I was going to say, I think people are paying less interest in what, for example, their neighbours, like just anyone, what they're doing. Like today I was on the bus and these two boys were at the back of the bus and they were talking about, getting a cigarette, here's one. And this man who sat next to him, he said, he was reading his paper and he just looked up and said, are you old enough to do that?
It was a very active process between them. And sometimes it was a very challenging process because people challenge each other in talk. It isn't a passive process. It's about challenging and establishing identities, but those identities are shifting as that process of negotiation takes place.
Who's more likely to get mugged around this table? Well, it isn't even these two. It's going to be me or him. You know what I mean?
I think it's more us, to be honest.
I know.
They're more likely to go for a girl to grab their bag than to go for... Because, you can see straight away where our goods are.
Interpretive repertoire is one of the main ways in which discourse analysts approach their text. So an interpretive repertoire is really the common sense ways in which we make sense of our social world, the terms we use, the metaphors we draw on, and they're already available in our culture. They're part of our society, part of the way in which we talk about particular things.
I was saying to my dad the other day, they were talking about buying a pint on the radio and how cheap it was. And I said to him, how much was it like 30 years ago for you to buy a pint? And he said, I could buy a round in the pub for like 50p. And I was like, you are lying. And I was like, that's not possible. And he's like, honestly, that's how...
They were drawing on particular repertoires, ways of talking about living in London.
I think that you have to be really more careful in London about the choices that you make. And those choices will have a bigger impact on your life if you don't make the right one. I think there's a lot of pressure to do that. I feel a lot of pressure to do that.
Well, you can fall through the cracks so easily in London. Where, exactly. Like I was saying, smaller towns...
We can also see the ways in which subject positions get taken up within those repertoires. So a subject position is about the availability of ways of categorising, ways of understanding the particular position you can take up within an interpretive repertoire.
The last time I saw someone get the crap kicked out of them was about, 4 or 5 months ago.
I don't think the sense of community is there anymore. Like, if that would happen many, many years ago, they'd be like, hey, stop that! Exactly. And someone would run over and, break it up and find out what's going on now, and you just, staring. And sometimes you're a bit frightened to look as well.
I don't know, though. I have a problem with some of that. I think it's very easy to turn around and go, the world's falling apart, and it wasn't like that in the good old days. It was.
Yeah. The notion of ideological dilemmas comes out of this idea that interpretive repertoires, although they're part of the common sense ways of talking about things, they can also be contradictory. And that when we speak about things, we draw on particular arguments and descriptions, but they don't always remain consistent. We don't stick to a particular way of talking about something, irrespective of the context in which we're talking about it. And so as a consequence, what you can find is that we shift within the repertoire that we're using.
But at the same time, I find London really hard, work for me, because it's really busy all the time, and when you are alone and while you find friends and you can go out, but it's nice because you got lots of opportunities and choices, and It's great.
That consistency isn't a problem of the individual. It's the nature of the way in which we use interpretive repertoires in relation to the context of the conversation or the broad-based context in which we find ourselves.